Welcome to the Revo Report. We're inspiring faith with reason and reason with faith. I was speaking with an atheist the other day who had visited our church. One of the things that he told me was, I just don't believe that there's anything after. I just feel like this is life, and after we die, we just disappear, and there's nothing after. And I told him, have you studied near-death experiences? And he hadn't. And I said, that could be a compelling evidence for an afterlife. How do you weigh the evidential strength of near-death experiences or deathbed experiences in making a case for the afterlife? We have a giveaway announcement today. We will be giving away Surviving in an Angry World by Charles Stanley, the Bible Study Teacher's Guide, right there, Bluetooth headphones right over here, open ear, very comfortable. And also we will be giving away this very cool old school analog watch. All you need to do is be subscribed, like this video, comment down below, and we will do a random draw next week to see who the winner is. Make sure to also hit that bell notification to be notified, because we will announce it in one of our videos next week. All right, let's get back into it.
Sure. First of all, I'd say that different types of evidence appeal to different people. And so if that person were to have their own near-death experience, I mean, really, they don't happen more to Christians than to non-Christians than to atheists. But when atheists experience this, they'll tend to say, oh my goodness, there's an afterlife and there's a God. So, I mean, just a major turnaround. So I was interviewing a person the other day, and these are people, I'm not looking for experiences. I don't know if it's just a God thing or if they're just so prevalent that they're always out there. But I was at a meeting where Gary Habermas was sharing about the resurrection at a C.S. Lewis Society meeting. And I saw somebody I knew, went over and said hi after the meeting or before, and she said, hey, you need to meet so-and-so who just read your book, and it was very meaningful to him on near-death experiences. And I met him, and this was a person who was he was a medical researcher for all of his adult life, had recently retired, and he was not a pastor, had not written a book. In fact, he'd only told his wife, I think, and one other person about these experiences. But when the researcher, was a child growing up, his dad was a fervent atheist. He said he was just the biggest atheist you ever met. We'd have these conversations. He was just very firm on his atheism. Said, but one day he had a heart attack and a stroke within a few days of each other. And he called me he said, close the door. And he said, while I was lying on that metal slab over there, I was clinically dead. And yet I went to the other side and I saw my deceased parents, and Jesus was in the middle of them, and Jesus held out his hand to me. And he said, don't tell anybody about this. Now the father's dead, and he feels like he's got permission to share it with me. I wrote it up. But
he converted, did the dad then?
I don't think they talked a lot about spiritual things in their family, but he said he never again said a word against religion or God in his life. Now, he said that he was the medical researcher. He said he was kind of an arrogant teenager at the time, and he just thought, oh, my dad had a hallucination, probably just kind of rolled his eyes and thought, how interesting. But then after he finished medical school, and he actually got an MD and then later a PhD, so he's well educated, but he was making his rounds in a veterans hospital, and a Vietnam vet was close to death. He had been seriously injured through a bomb, something had set off, and an Agent Orange. But he said, do you have a minute for me to talk to you? And he said, well, not really, but hey, I'll sit here for you for a minute. And he sat and he told him about this experience in Vietnam where a bomb had blown up. And then he said, but what happened during that experience is I went to the other side and I saw my deceased parents and I saw Jesus, and he reached out his hand to me. And the doctor, Dr. Steer, he said at that point, oh my goodness, that's the same story that my dad told me. Why would this have happened to two people, one in Vietnam, one here, two very different people? His dad was an extremely educated person. And this other one was just kind of a normal person who had gotten caught up in the Vietnam conflict. But he said, but that was compelling to him. Now, what does that say about, well, if you take those two experiences, neither of them had any doubt that they actually saw Jesus on the other side. Well, to me, when I began to look at NDE experiences, and about 1 out of 5 of them from my study actually had Jesus in them. Not every account has everything. Not everybody sees a tunnel. Not everybody has a life review. Some people will just go to the other side, experience great peace, meet an angel, come back. But there are these 16 or so very consistent elements. But a lot of them are just in, 20% or 17% of the, well, for Jesus to be there in 17 to 20% of them, that's a lot. So that helped me to see, it's not just the Apostle Paul that after Jesus' ascension had an encounter with Jesus. I can go back and look at what I think is very strong historical evidence that these miraculous things happened in New Testament times. After all, a lot of these people went out and died for what they believed, and they would have known if they were making it all up. So why would they go dying for a lie? So I think this is pretty good historical evidence. But after all, that's 2,000 years ago. So I could only get up to like 90% belief based on the historical evidence and things like that, as far as Jesus and the Bible are concerned. But once I started talking to people who had no reason to lie to me, people I trusted, and they were telling me about their visionary encounters with Jesus or near-death experiences, this showed me, okay, number one, where is he if they're experiencing this and they know it for sure? Well, it's some kind of an afterlife. He died 2,000 years ago, and there he is still alive. Where are these deceased parents? Were they reincarnated as animals or reincarnated as other people than themselves? No, they were still themselves on the other side, maybe decades later after their death. Well, if they're actually alive there after their death, that's the afterlife. That's the afterlife, right? So to me, this became very strong evidence, even if you don't believe the Bible, even if you don't believe anything else, when you look at these experiences, and these are intelligent people just like me and you, a lot of them are very successful in their careers, and they're telling you, I was there. It was as real as this reality. And so if you think about it, okay, philosophically, I'm a philosopher, and so you think, okay, well, how is it that I know we're really having this conversation here and that it's not a dream? Because when you're in a dream, you think that's real. But we know that this is realer than the dream reality. And so I think we're warranted in saying that we're really awake. This is reality because of the degree of reality with which we're experiencing it. So aren't these people who are saying, I was really there. I really talked to some angels. I really talked to some deceased relatives over there. I really met God face to face, and I felt his love that passes all understanding. Aren't they warranted in believing that on the basis of their very empirical experiences? I mean, that's what we look at in science. But then, what about me? A lot of people will say, well, I'm an atheist. I don't really believe it. If I have an experience like that, I'll reconsider it. Well, I think, yes, we can say from atheist experience with near-death experiences that if you have it, you'll probably believe. So why don't you believe on the basis of your future self testifying to you, rather than waiting for a deathbed experience to where you have it? I don't think these people are any less objective or scientific or anything than we are. So why shouldn't we believe based on their testimony, just like in a court of law where they can't go back and repeat this person's murder in order to investigate it, but they've got to rely on compelling testimony. So I think it's very powerful evidence, but you have to get in and look at the data from the best research and say, what makes the best sense of this? The afterlife hypothesis, that they're really in some type of afterlife situation, or it's just something that's caused by a dying brain.